financial advisor and a lawyer walk into a bar.
And then what happens, Dave?
Well, the question that we come up with is, jeepers, what's the tech that businesses are using in 2023?
IT, eh? IT. IT for SMEs, that's the topic for today. And thankfully, we've got a guest, because if you and I try to talk about it, Dave, I don't think it'll go very far.
Yeah, God help us all.
Yeah, it would be an informed discussion. So we've got Sebastian from SSDL. He's the owner and the operator of SSDL, which is a specialist IT consulting firm who do our IT. I should disclose up front. They do the IT for lots of sort of SME enterprises, and he knows everything there is to know about IT for small businesses. So
no pressure.
Welcome, Jeff. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, that's a pleasure. So the first thing for me is it's a bit of a black box. We sort of mentioned it just before when we were chatting that most, I think, business owners, they know they've got a computer, they know they've got a bunch of computers, they know they've got some software on it and all that. But really, we don't know kind of how it all operates. We don't know what we should be spending on IT. It's all sort of a bit of a mystery, which we know when it's broken and we get upset about it, but we don't really know what we should be doing.
You restart your machines, the first thing, isn't it? Right. Have you restarted? I've done that.
Yeah. I mean, should all businesses have an IT person, and should they be doing something every month with their IT? Or, talk us through what you think sort of, and we're talking to general business owners, so obviously it's going to be different for different businesses, but should we all have an IT consulting company that's on the books every month? Is that what you'd say?
Yeah, look, definitely. In regards to a lot of organisations, whether they're small, medium, large, realistically, they're going to have some sort of a department or some sort of a need. These days, I suppose you can't get away from technology.
Yep.
And as business owners, what you guys do is what you specialise in. So a lot of the times, what you find is that tech sometimes gets a little bit sort of bewildering, a little bit sort of over the top. As you mentioned, sometimes it's just it's that room in the corner that has things and does stuff, and when it doesn't work, that's when you call and you've got issues.
Yep.
Generally, what we find for a lot of organisations is that those that are proactive in making sure that their systems are up to date, that they're outsourcing that they're having a look at the environment, because it's changing so quickly.
Yep.
If you're not abreast of what's happening in your industry, what's happening, with other organisations, it's quite easy to fall behind and really, lose any competitive advantage that you may have. Your competitors are becoming smarter. They're working remotely. They're bringing their costs down. They're increasing their uptime. So there's a lot of variables that a lot of small to medium sized businesses need to look at. Whether that be the day-to-day devices that people use. Historically, a lot of businesses are inclined to sweat assets for as long as possible. So they'll use a laptop for an employee for 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
So Alex is smiling there. He's like, of course we do.
We're taking our laptops every 2 years, or
Yeah, correct. Because I suppose the way, if you have a think about it, the way how quickly and how rapidly technology and applications and online cloud is happening, you're needing more resources in those devices. What we find a lot of the times, unfortunately, when we sort of go in and meet with new customers, is that they may be running 5-year-old, 6-year-old hardware, where you talk to the staff and they're like, tell me about your day, understanding their processes to try improve efficiencies. And they'll be like, I come in the morning, I'll turn my computer on, then I'll go and make a cup of coffee, and then I'll come back, and then hopefully by the time I'm there, it's logged in and ready to go.
Right.
And as a business owner, you sort of look at that and you're like, well, I've got to spend a couple of grand on a new machine or something that's going to be able to produce. But unfortunately, a lot of smaller businesses, don't see the value in, maintaining those devices to create that efficiency. So, spending a couple of grand up front for a new device or whatever it might be, is a bit of a hit. But when you have a look at, things like, your staff retention, your staff happiness, being able to provide your staff with all those features and things that they're expecting, creating that culture of innovation and those sorts of things, you generally find, and especially over COVID, those were the businesses that really thrived.
So that's really a false economy, though, isn't it? I mean, this is part of it. People go, well, I'm paying out this money to buy a new machine for someone, but then you look at it on the other side as the employee that sits there and says, well, yeah, I come in the morning, I started, hopefully the machine's up and running in 10 minutes. You've then got to start to look at it from a productivity point of view, but also for an employee that says, oh, why do I want to stay here? They're never spending any money on the technology. And I can't really feel that I'm, performing at my optimal best because the equipment that's provided me for me to do my job is suboptimal, which then you come to the challenge of, well, now I've got to replace that person. So the cost of a $2,000 machine is now actually cost you about $5,000 or more because you've got to spend time to go replace that person. So I think a lot of it, people look at it and see it as yes, it is a sunk cost, but it's also a way that you've got to maintain to attract the right people into your business and having your technology platform.
I got all that, and that makes sense to me. But the issue I know I have, and I'm sure other owners feel the same, is you sort of go, but if I buy a new machine, will that be better? I don't know. Is it RAM? Is it?
Oh, here's a big word for Alex. He's pulled out the only technology word he knows.
Will it be faster, or is it my internet speed that's the problem, or is it that my operating system that I'm renting? We've got a practice management system. Is it that's slowing things down, or like the issue I have is it's all such a sort of a mystery that I go, well, I could spend $2,000 and maybe I could be better off, or maybe I could be the same as I was before, and it's I don't know. Like, I'm all for keeping the team happy, and I'm all for productivity increases, absolutely. But, you sort of don't know, is a new computer going to help all those things?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose that's also part of the thing where, where you're initially engaging with a partner. To have a look at that, because they should really be having a look and having a discussion about your business and getting a good understanding of what you use. What do you use? What do your staff use? What are your plans for the future? What are your requirements? Do you have any compliance, any legal requirements for your data? Those sorts of things. Having a really good understanding of the landscape to be able to give you, some clear, decisive information to say that, hey, you've got 5-year-old machines, but you've got 15 people running off an ADSL connection.
Exactly.
So is that then? So then, should you, if that's the situation, should you then take it a step back and do a technology or an IT audit to sort of say, right, this is where you currently sit versus here's where the market potentially would be for the size of your organisation. Now that may mean, and I agree, I think in some instances in some industries, your level of technology and sophistication will be greater than others. And I come back to your point, Alex, I agree. Just because you throw money at it doesn't mean that it's going to improve. I mean, I'm happy to spend the money, but let me spend it in the right places. But also as part of an audit or a progression plan, that it might be, if you're going to do one thing and there's 6 things on the list, do this one thing first, and then that may actually assist in helping 2 or 3 of the other items on the list that may still need to be improved, but you've got to get your number one thing first, which again comes back to the issue, is it the machine or is it the infrastructure that gets the information around? Where's the lesser of the 2 evils, really?
And your IT consultant should be able to tell you that. Is that right, Seb?
Yeah, so realistically, in regards to, when you're onboarding someone for the first time, you really need to be able to sit down and have a look at the business and have a look at, what's the plan moving forward. I think, there's no point in recommending servers or physical infrastructure into an office that is planning on implementing more work from home policies. You might want to look at cloud alternatives. You might want to have a look at other, applications that you've got available, within your industry that will enable productivity, for everyone, rather than sort of, coming in and thinking, well, we've had these servers here for 10 years, let's get some more servers, and that's going to make things better. Well, it's not necessarily the case, because, as we're all aware as to how quick technology changes and how much, how many applications are available online these days, that are industry specific, that do, 80, 90% of what you need them to do. Provides a whole, new level of flexibility for organisations and business owners to sort of have a look at. The other thing that we found, over the years, and I suppose COVID's been a really strong driver for, obviously remote working from home, collaboration, changing people's perception and really business owners, because, historically a lot of business owners, they want to be able to touch and feel, and they want to, be able to see their staff every day and those sorts of things. Having a look at how cloud, remote working, all those sorts of things has enabled a lot of businesses to increase productivity, increase job satisfaction, work-life balance, and all those sorts of things. So
yeah, we work from home a lot more than we used to, and we certainly found it's increased job satisfaction and work-life balance by a lot, because the travel time is obviously now time that you can either spend with your family or working, and so
preferably working for you.
Working for me. You can have your kid once, and then you can get working hours.
You get 5 minutes, and that's it. You're back on the tools.
So that's been a big help. But I found, when I was a junior lawyer, what we used to do, if I wanted a senior lawyer to look at my work, I would, type up a letter or whatever, and I'd print it out and I'd put it in their inbox, and they would hand amend it, and then they would give it back to me, like with a red pen, and then they'd give it back to me, and I'd make the changes, or possibly a PA would make the changes, and then possibly print it out again to them. And that was the process, right? And you'd stick it on, you'd paper clip it on the front of the file, which was a physical file. If I got an email, I printed it out and popped it on the file, or punched it and whacked it on the file. That was the and this is not how long ago, right? When I was
don't look that old, Alex.
10 years ago, right? But now what we do is, if my team want me to look at something, they just send me the link, and I look at the actual document, make changes in the document, and then it's all there, and I can look it up if I want or not. It's just a small example of what's probably saved everyone an hour a day of mucking around. Everyone just tons more efficient as a result of, our practice management system facilitates that, and we're all working from the actual document, so there can be no confusion about versions and all that. And it's just a small example of the kind of productivity, and we have to pay for this practice management system, and it's significantly expensive. It's significantly expensive, but it's, the efficiencies are just really incredible. Technology, the way it can deliver, we're still doing the same legal work, if you like, but we're just doing it in a way that's far more efficient, and we can do it from home now. And, we had an employee who worked on the farm in the morning, on the tractor in Tasmania, and then she was working from home that afternoon in Tasmania working for us. And in the past, if she wanted to work from Tasmania, she'd have to get a job done. So it was just, it's been, I am just 100% on board with technology. I think that the risk that is that I don't understand it. And so I don't know what we should be buying or not buying. Or I don't know, but we spent a whole bunch on Adobe Acrobat or whatever it is with all these subscriptions. Are we spending too much? I don't know. Is it expensive? I don't know. Is it cheap? I don't know. Should your IT consultant be able to check with other industries and look at what's standard and see, are you overspending or underspending, or is that a reasonable thing to ask of an IT person?
So I just want to jump in, Sebastian. I just want to remind our listeners today, we're talking about, IT within businesses and specifically within the SME market, and just how much it's evolved and ticked along. And I'll add on to that comment that Sebastian's about to increase your rates, Alex, because clearly you're clearly not paying enough.
Like too much in Adobe or not enough? I don't know.
Clearly not enough.
It's expensive, but we all need it because we're dealing with PDFs all day, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that in regards to things like, licensing, all those sorts of things, realistically, you're better off handing off those responsibilities to a provider.
Right.
That's able to manage that for you. And I think, in a previous podcast, you guys were sort of discussing around administration rights, all those sorts of things. And that sort of falls in line with things like onboarding and offboarding, individuals. Having that process to say, hey, I've got Joe Bloggs starting on Monday. Do you really want to be wasting your time buying a license, enabling, a user in Adobe, and then contacting your IT provider to do other stuff, when realistically you should be saying, hey, I've got Joe Bloggs, this is their name, this is their title, this is their details, this is what we need, and you guys set it up, and then they come in on Monday and it's there ready to go.
Yeah, and can I just give you a plug on that asset? I know, because we obviously have people come on board, only on board, no one off board today. They will be forever. When we say to Sebastian, we've got this person starting exactly that. Here's their name and their details, and it comes back to before you know it, they've got a computer in their hand that's got everything on it. It's got the email set up. It's got their sign off, everything, all sorts of fiddly, annoying stuff that would take us ages and we'd stuff up.
You have no idea how to do.
No idea, not a clue. And if we give senior people would be spending a lot of time on it, when they could be doing more efficient or more productive things. And it's fantastic. And that's a great example of what SSDL can do for people listening. If you're looking for a good IT provider, SSDL are it. They certainly do a great job for us on exactly that. And it's just a load off our mind, you know.
Which I think also goes back to the point, you know, do what you do best, and find a good partner that does what they do best.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I think a lot of people, oh no, but I want this control mechanism. It's like, no.
Yeah,
find what you love to do and do best, and bring on someone who does a much better job at that area, particularly in technology, and let them come up with the solutions and the new opportunities that are available for you. So one of the other questions that I'm curious on is just I suppose in to put things into context, how much do you think we've from a technology point of view we've come in, even I mean, if we talk the last 5 years and specifically within the COVID, I mean, what was it like from 5 years ago to where we are now, and even for your own business, Sebastian, what impact has that had?
Yeah, look, really, like leaps and bounds. Like technology at the moment is just in hyperspeed. You know, if you start talking about things like AI, you know, probably a hot topic at the moment, you know, globally and all those sorts of things. If you have a look at, you know, how quickly and how rapidly that within itself, you know, has only sort of hit mainstream probably in the last 3 to 6 months. You know, how quickly that's changing, evolving, and you know, creating, you know, positives, but also, you know, opportunities and risks with it as well. Compared to 5 years ago, you know, having a look at, you know, it's funny, you know, there's a lot of memes that go around that sort of say, you know, what made you, you know, move to the cloud, or you know, move to collaboration, and you know, it was COVID. It was that, you know, even though, you know, we've been speaking to a lot of organizations for years saying, hey, you know, you need to create a hybrid workplace. You need to start looking at technology, using, you know, what's available out there to improve your business, become more efficient. It's just amazing how rapidly things evolved, especially in the last couple of years when COVID kicked in, that all of a sudden, you know, businesses were screaming saying, you know, hey, I've got to send everyone home. What do we do?
Was that fear for people not doing it previously, or was it just seen as, I'll kind of get to it?
Yeah, I think it was, you know, initially it was, you know, a lot of business owners sort of fearing that, you know, if I send people working from home, you know, are they going to be productive? They're not going to be as productive. You know, I don't feel safe because I don't know that they're there, and I can't hand them that document. I can't, you know, ask people a question straight away, which is obviously not the case. But you know, that I suppose requirement that happened from COVID, where we had, you know, went into lockdowns, and it was really about, for a lot of businesses, it was about survival. It was about having a look at what they could do, and as quickly as possible, you know, change their business practices, you know, change their internal policies and the way that they did things within a couple of years. And, you know, that's sort of progressed on over the last couple of years even further. You know, historically, you know, 5 years ago, you know, I think that, you know, the adoption of things like laptops, you know, a lot of people wanted PCs because they went into the office, they had a PC, they wouldn't think twice about taking a laptop home. You know, I need a laptop. You want me to work from home? I don't want to work from home. Do you know what I mean?
Now it's the opposite, isn't it? Like, what, you want me to come back into the office? No, I'll just work from home on my laptop, thanks.
So, you know, I mean, like the change in, you know, even device demand, you know, the device numbers for PCs and those sorts of things have obviously over the years, you know, gone down, whereas laptops and, you know, tablets and those sorts of devices are obviously increasing to be able to create that versatility for employees to be able to function as they need.
So what's your view on which they refer to as, you know, the company provides a piece of equipment for you versus some places now saying, well, bring your own device. So, you know, what's the, I suppose to you know, outline and explain the difference between the two, but also what some of the risks might be for a business to allow that to occur.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because from a company-owned device, you know, generally you'll find that it'll be an organisation that's probably a little bit better structured, you know, that has got things in place in regards to, you know, when a person comes on board, they may have, you know, certain processes and applications and you know, policies that they sort of put into place. What we find is that sometimes, unfortunately, you know, small businesses will ask people to bring their own devices without taking into consideration the risk that comes around with that. So, you know, obviously information privacy, you know, things that happen around data breach and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's vital for organizations that if you're going to have a company-owned device or if you're going to have a BYO device, have the infrastructure and the security in the back end to be able to support both and be able to make sure that the information that you're providing to your staff, your employees, is secure. Because at the end of the day, if something happens, that's going to be your responsibility to deal with. So we're all for having options, because we've got some customers that want to run Apple, but not everyone that comes on board likes Apple. They may not have gone through uni or whatever education.
Dirty word.
Yeah, that's all different. We don't want anything different. We want the same. That's why we buy everyone a computer just so everyone's got the same, so you sort of know where you sit. I don't know about all this freeloading, bring your BYO DD thing. Get it.
Yeah, but I think that the main sort of point of it is that providing both options is fantastic, but having that infrastructure and that security behind to make sure that you're giving access to what people need on their personal devices, if that's the way you want to go, but also making sure that you've got policies in place. We've got scenarios where organisations at the start of COVID started saying, well, we haven't got laptops, so we want you to use your own personal laptop. We'll give you access to your emails and bits and pieces. You need to make sure that we're going to install a security application on there before you can get access to things. But then they didn't have policies in place to say that, well, hold on, you're now using your personal laptop for work scenario, which means that you're using it more than you normally would. Does that then mean that if the battery dies or something dies on it, that you're going to be paying for it because I've used it, more than what I normally would, which means that it's died quicker.
Yeah.
And then, whose responsibility is that? And that's where I think a lot of organisations sort of got a little bit caught out, where they were, use your own device. They set up security policies as much as they could, but then they also didn't have their internal policies to say, what's the actual use case? Can you do this? Can you do that?
Yeah.
If something happens, are we going to, compensate you for it? And those.
Because is there a legal? I mean, Alex, from a legal point of view, if, like you, as you said, I mean, we're the same. We have our own. I provide the infrastructure for everyone. I'm not a big fan of bring your own device. My preference is to have that way. We've got consistency and there's not conflicting issues. But if there is to bring your own device and someone's using it, and look, COVID was a classic example. You just couldn't get equipment to be able to provide to people, or they couldn't get into the office to take it home. But then when they come back into the office, they haven't got anything there. Is there a legal issue with information being shared that maybe someone is grabbing access to information and bringing it onto their own machine personally, and then when they exit the business, or just holding that data outside of the business network, is there a risk for both the business and the employee?
Yeah, there is. And we see it all the time with customer and data poaching. So, when an employee leaves, they might be the head of sales. They might have all the contact details of all your customers on there. They might have all the pricing information, and they might go to a competitor and they might share that information. Now, when they finish up, you can say, okay, well, hand me back your laptop, because that's if it's a work laptop, hand me back your laptop, and your mobile, it's a work mobile, and possibly your car or whatever else is work equipment. And, we'll give that to the next employee, and that's fine. It's a lot easier to control than if you're saying, okay, well, you've got your own laptop, but can you just delete this and that off it? Or could you, it just becomes, I mean, there are things you can get through, but it just becomes very messy, and it's certainly much easier to protect data security and anti-competitive type conduct if you own the devices and you just hand them back at the end. But in the mean way, not give me turn up to the house and say, but when you hand back the work equipment, when you go and get equipment from your new work, it's just not nice and neat and tidy. Whereas if you're dealing with your own devices, and mobiles are real classic. People go, well, I've got all my personal contacts on my mobile, which is fine, but there's this real kind of grey area of what's work and what's personal. And if you've got a separate mobile and a separate computer, then it's all pretty straightforward. So that's probably a bit outside of our discussion today, but certainly in the kind of poaching area, and poaching's so big at the moment, people are poaching staff, and the staff are bringing customer contacts, therefore they're poaching customers. And it's hard to find staff, so people are headhunting more. So it's becoming bigger and bigger. I think certainly for us, IT, kind of IT, giving people their own device and then making it secure. And, we can remotely jump on someone's laptop and remove information if we wanted to. We don't want to, and we won't. But, you can cut people's access off if that need be. Dealing like in a law firm or a financial advice firm or a lot of companies, you're dealing with very personal information that's not yours.
Yeah, very sensitive.
Very sensitive. Yeah. Someone's passport on your system. You can't have your employee nicking off to their new place with someone else's passport on the computer. So and that's not a fake example. That's a real example of the financial advice litigation that I did over financial advisors nicking information. Sure, that you've never heard of that, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
So be serious, and and the litigation and the expense and the cost and the risk is way out of proportion than just a couple of grand for a laptop. So,
Sebastian, what are the key, what are the main things that you see that like an SME perhaps wouldn't address? Like, what are some of the risks that you see with the IT infrastructure?
Yeah, generally what we find is that a lot of businesses, a lot of the time, don't really understand where the data is. They go and put these systems into place. They go and my mate told me about this application, and I'll go and install it, and I'll go and put my data into it, and then it's housed in Russia somewhere. Like, you don't even know where it's actually stored. So the thing that we find for a lot of businesses, unfortunately, is that they number one, don't have a clear understanding of where their information is. Number two, they don't understand, I suppose, their requirements around what needs to happen around keeping that information secure these days. Is probably the next one, where organisations will set up online stores, or they'll set up other bits and pieces. They'll get personal identifiable information. They won't know the requirements that they need to have around that. Having a good understanding of where your data is, for a lot of organisations is key, because that's what we're finding, I suppose, now, and more so with all of these, data breaches and everything else that's happening, is that there's, a lot of businesses, and it's, the big ones that hit the media, the numbers that make mainstream media is one thing, but realistically, they're well understated. The number of hackings, and number of organisations, and the amount of money that people are losing and businesses are losing over time because of those sorts of things, and it's really about having a clear understanding of where your data is and what you've got in place to secure it.
I also think part of it is, yes, we need the infrastructure to look at what's an efficient way to run the business and for people to have the right equipment. But the other side of it is also, I think, internally some training for people, just to remind them of the fact of just how easy it can be that information can be released. Some of these hackers that may seem like they're really good, that they're impersonating either one of your customers or one of your providers, and someone's like, oh, no, it seems okay. They sent me this message and I just sent this detail back to them. Just those queries of people looking at stuff and the training internally that says, if it doesn't kind of look right, second guess it, or at least make a phone call to the individual who's requesting the information. Do you see that, or is that part of the stuff that you do? Can you put training programs or at least steer people in the right direction to be able to offer that training? Because I think a lot of people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, I suppose, we do offer, training, phishing awareness, those sorts of things. But some of the things that we also do is that we actually phish our customers. So, Alex and Know gets a monthly report that says, hey, Joe Blogs clicked on a link, or they put in their password.
Right.
And, having
this guy's really dangerous.
Well, we've known, but that's for different reasons. Let's not go down that path, Alex. That would be a very long podcast, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, that's very proactive to test because it's all very well to do training every now and again.
Yeah.
Sleep through it and you tick a couple of boxes.
Oh, now, Alex, speak for yourself.
But whereas you actually, and of course, once you've done it, it's too late. Whereas if you get it, it really reminds you, and you feel bad when you get busted by Sebastian's. And then, we work out who did it and who didn't, and the person who didn't do it feels pretty good. So it's much better, I think, than doing a training course where you get some examples.
So you get parked in the naughty corner pretty regularly then, do you?
Yeah, I mean, because the difficult thing for us, we get sent all sorts of weird stuff by legit clients, you know what I mean? They send you a link, or they send you some documents, or a cloud link, or they send you a whatever. that could all be legit. And of course, so we do have to be very aware because of the business we're doing. But I mean, everyone does. We all get sent strange things by our suppliers and by our customers. So it's a big issue. Yeah. One question I had is, and I sort of alluded to it at the start. You get an audit or something when you first sign up with a provider, but should we be doing monthly maintenance? Should everyone sort of have a where you upload the latest and greatest on the computer every month or every week or every year, or what should people be doing? Because you're talking about being proactive. How do you be proactive in the accounting IT space? Because I know most people are very reactive. If their computer dies, they crack it and want it to be fixed immediately. If it doesn't, everything's fixed.
Is that speaking from experience?
Because I mean, one of the biggest frustrations for any employee is when their IT doesn't work, and they get frustrated very quick, and it upsets them, and obviously IT people, have to be able to respond quickly, but there's only so quickly you can respond. But is there something you can do to make your business much more robust so those things don't happen, or don't happen as often?
Yeah, and I suppose that's really where it comes in regards to having a provider that comes in and does that for you. Like in regards to your updates and your patches of your devices and all those sorts of things. There's a lot of minor glitches and things that happen within organisations. Is resolved by an update. It's already been fixed, but you haven't applied it. And again, a lot of small businesses, they've got so much going on. The last thing they want to be doing is going around to 10, 5, 15, 20 computers and doing updates, making sure that those systems are running well. Our applications that we look after our customers, sit and monitor their devices in regards to utilization. So if we see that you're, maxing out on certain, whether it be, CPU or RAM or disk space or whatever it is, we'll come back out to you and say, hey, this is where we're at. You're going to need to look at upgrading your machine in X amount of time. Right. To get to the sort of end of it. And those sorts of things are, the things that your provider should be doing for you. Making sure that you guys, again, can focus on what you're doing, because you don't want to be sitting there, going, hey, guys, have you applied to the recent updates? There's a security update that came out from Microsoft last night. Have you done it yet? Yes,
absolutely. Because the answer is no. Yeah.
But that's what I find with people, and I will say that even trying to deal with, at home, they're like, oh, this machine's not working. Like, so when was the last time you restarted it? Well, what do you mean? I said, well, because it's cloud-based, it will, every time you restart, it will draw down any updates and update the system and reconfigure and recalibrate everything. Oh, well, that just takes time. I said, I know, but the longer you leave it, the longer it takes. But if you do it, I mean, I know some people have the discipline, they turn their machine off or restart their machine. At the end of the day, they'll shut it down and restart it. So when they come in the morning, it's ready to go. Or someone will have the discipline, when they come in the morning, they restart their machine to pick up anything that may have, come through overnight. And I think that's a big one for a lot of businesses. People just leave the machine on and they don't worry about it. It's a bit like your phone. I mean, people just don't turn their phones off these days. But then they have the issue that the patches are not, put through. Is that something that you find as well?
Yeah, and likewise, I suppose, if you think about it, every time you go to a web page, you go to a browser, you're saving temporary data on your device, so you're clogging up certain resources within that device. When you reboot, it freshes that out. So generally what you're doing is that, we might get a phone call of someone saying, hey, I can't get onto this website, or my mouse isn't working, or something along those lines. And, we'll jump onto the system and we'll have a look at the computer and we'll say, you've been running for 3 weeks straight. There's probably a good reason why that is. Because the other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of updates require a reboot for it to actually finish. So what you probably notice is, you've got half the update happens before you reboot, the other half happens once you actually reboot itself. So, a lot of the times, those things will happen where, you'll have a lot of things that are backlogged in the back end.
Yeah.
Can you set it up automatically for some businesses that remotely you can come in and just force each machine to reboot?
Yeah, you definitely can. So, I mean, look, in regards to, depending on the organisation and the policies and those sorts of things, there are some companies that, choose to have updates applied on a particular day of the week, and the system will automatically reboot their devices. Others that are more flexible and work longer hours, more remote, have different policies and requirements around that. But definitely as a user, if you're if you've got relatively new machinery and you're not rebooting at least, every couple of days, then you will notice some sort of delay. Your webcam might start playing up, your audio might start playing up when you're streaming things. You'll notice that because you've got those temporary files that just clog up in the background. As you reboot, you're like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it works.
Yeah. One question I had is getting some resource internally. A lot of our clients have between sort of about 50 staff and about maybe 350 staff. So they're in that kind of, I don't know, you might call it a medium-sized business. Do you have a view, like if you've got 350 computers, should you have your own full-time IT person? The second part of that question is, we've had some clients who said they've got an internal IT person. It's the best person they ever hired in their life because their IT runs a lot more smoothly than it did before. If they're logistics or there's a lot of pretty much any business, you just can't afford for your IT to be down even for 5 minutes. So if you can stop that, then it makes a huge difference. Is there do you have a view about how many machines you need before it becomes worthwhile, or it just depends?
Yeah, again, I think it depends on the size of the organisation. I think every organisation, regardless of whether you're, a one-man, two-man, 500-seat organisation, you're going to need some sort of support there.
Yeah.
Whether, you're a smaller business, you might have someone that does, remote support, and they might be on call for incidents and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
When you start getting to, say 50, 100 staff, you might want to have potentially, someone a little bit more junior on site, or we've got resources that we put staff out on site once a week, a couple of days a week, those sorts of things. Or alternatively, you might have someone on site, but then effectively we've got customers where we do the level 2 and 3 in strategy and those sorts of things. So they've got their own junior person for, hey, I need my password reset, or can you set up a new laptop for me? But when it comes to, more around development and those sorts of things and longer term strategies, that's where we sort of play a part as well. So regardless of, what size organization you are, in the world that we are these days, technology plays such a massive role in businesses that you'd really be letting yourself down, your customers and everything else, if you aren't aware of that and putting some sort of money towards that, making sure that you're sort of, really heading in the right direction.
It's like putting it in the budget, isn't it? It's like anything. I mean, you put certain allocations in your budget because you've got to spend the money over the year. To me, part of it is knowing what your capital expenditure needs to be on new equipment. And even part of that also comes back into your tax planning for your business, and a discussion potentially with your accountant because of some of the instant tax write-offs and these sorts of things. Again, bring in good equipment that helps you do the job. I mean, it's like saying, well, I'll just, I'll cut down that tree. Some bloke turns up with an axe and another bloke turns up with the chainsaw. They're both doing the same job. Yeah. But one's got newer equipment that's going to work better.
Budget in for your lawyer as well. I'll just say that's something. We
didn't have budget for that one. Well, it's the largest line item in the expenses is these bloody lawyers. Unbelievable. That's to cover their bar tab.
Yeah, that's right. So is there any other kind of tips you'd give before we sort of wind up, Seb, about what small businesses are doing wrong and how they can get a quick win in IT, how they can improve? What risks are they just ignoring generally?
Yeah. So like I said, really, I think, getting someone in to have a look at what you're doing, even sort of going back to that last comment around, how many staff we need to have. Even if you've got an individual, that individual can't know everything. The IT is such a broad space. Like your own industry, you've got different, lawyers for different functions. Getting someone in to have a bit of an overview look, identify what, your risks are and what your opportunities are. And then, make some educated and informed decisions. There's no point sort of, recommending enterprise grade solutions to a small business because there's no way they're going to spend 90% of their budget on that. But having a look at something that is going to work and suit the business needs. And that's something that a lot of organizations really struggle to do and have a look at, saying, hey, we really need to find a balance between, security and infrastructure and keeping people happy, as well as, making sure that it's within budget. So that's probably the main thing, getting a good understanding and making sure that it actually, is part of your business plan, making sure that it's part of your business strategy. You can't sort of run a business without sort of having to think about, well, what am I going to use? Is there new apps that are going to come out? Those sorts of things. So, really sort of having a good think about it. Really well.
But is it also this balance of, and I'm sure Alex is guilty of this, the next shiny thing that happens over there? All my attention is drawn over there rather than...
I'm a very, I'm a very sensible, plan ahead kind of guy. The next shiny thing, no, that's not me.
Business owners can't help themselves like, there's a new little toy. Let's have a look at that. I mean, that's part of it as well. I think you've got it because there's so much new technology that keeps coming out, and as you say, a new app and this and that. It's like, we've got to let's keep our consistent infrastructure in place technology-wise. But if you're going to do it, you might look at something and test it before you then roll it out to everyone, because not everyone's comfortable with change all the time.
Yeah, can I just say something about that? That's actually a good point that you raised, Dave.
Thanks, Al.
Slack and some of these other apps that where you collaborate with people for workflow and so on are very exciting and I think very good. But what we discovered internally when we were sort of looking at different ways of collaborating because we're working online more is that Outlook, with its existing tasks, the task system on Outlook where you can allocate tasks to people and that actually speaks to our practice management system. So we can look at the tasks on a file that's on our system, or you can look at the tasks each person's been allocated. But basically the tasks work absolutely brilliantly for collaborating, and we already had that technology, we just weren't using it. So we discovered that, there was a whole bunch of efficiencies to be had without upgrading, without doing anything, just by understanding the technology that we already had and using what it was designed for. I mean, Outlook is actually a really high-tech bit of equipment that everyone's got and everyone takes for granted. And we were sort of amazed. And now the whole team, can allocate tasks. If someone's sick, you can see what tasks they had and reallocate them to different people. And, they get reminders in your system and all of that. And it's all very, very high tech. And we didn't need to get a new app or learn a new system or anything. We just needed to use what we already had.
And it's getting a better return on that investment too.
We're already paying for it. And now we're much more efficient. And, when you work from home, you're not in the same office. So you do have to have different systems than you did before. But the systems are actually better. These systems no one can forget. There's none of this Post-it note on your screen rubbish.
Well, there is for some people.
It's the dinosaurs. Yeah. So we found the tasks on Apple just made a big difference. And the things that the improvements in productivity that technology can give you is sort of mind blowing, and you'd be mad not to jump on board. As you say, Well, that's probably it. Then is it Dave?
I think so, unless Sebastian's got some further comments and words of wisdom for our audience.
No, I think that's it for the moment. But it's been fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, well, look, we'd like to thank Seb for his involvement today from SSDL. So I would also like to thank Alex from Taurus Legal Management, and he can be contacted via LinkedIn at Alex Martin or via the website tauruslawyers.com.au.
Yeah, and I want to thank David Murdoch, the wealth activist from Paxton Bridge, and you can contact him on LinkedIn or on at paxtonbridge.com. And our special guest, Sebastian from SSDL, probably the best place is at ssdl.com.au to contact him. We'll also put his notes in the comments on the show. Put his contact details in the comments on the show so you can contact Sebastian. And as I said before, he does our IT and he does a great job, and we're very appreciative of him. So we can highly recommend SSDL if you need some IT for your SME.
Gentlemen, thank you. Cheers, and have a lovely afternoon.
Thanks. See you next time.
See ya.